Hi everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about trig derivatives. So we already know from motion of a line that sine, cos, negative cos is how we find derivatives. The derivative of sine is cos, derivative of cos is negative sine, derivative of negative sine is negative cos, and the derivative of cos is sine. But we never saw the textbook definition. So the textbook definition of the derivative of sine is cosine of u times du over dx, where du over dx is the derivative of this inside. So the derivative of sine of u is cos of u times the derivative of u, or the derivative of the inside. Derivative of cosine is negative sine of u times du over dx, which again means the derivative of the inside. So the derivative of cosine is negative sine times the derivative of u, or the derivative of the inside. So we're still going to use this. We just have to add the derivative of the inside. We also have to understand that sine squared of x, which we've seen in pre-calc, is sometimes referred to as sine of x, that whole thing squared. So you're going to notice that all the problems will be written sine squared of x, and you have to know that it means sine of x, that whole thing, squared. Similarly, cosine to the fourth x is the same thing as saying cosine of x, that whole thing, to the fourth. But again, you're never going to see it this way. You're only going to see it this way, and you have to know to bring it to this form. So let's take a look at these 6 derivatives. So we're going to need, again, the derivative of sine is cosine, negative cos. So if I want to find the derivative of sine of 3x, this first one, I just simply say, okay, the derivative of sine is cosine. So we write f prime of x is cosine of 3x, but then we have to take the derivative of the inside. And the derivative of 3x is just 3. That's it. That's your answer. That's the derivative. All right, let's try the second one. So the derivative of cosine, well, we're here. The derivative of cos is negative sine. So negative sine of 4/5 x, keep the inside. Now take the derivative of the inside. So what's the derivative of 4/5 x? Just 4/5. Now, number 3, I want to take the derivative of negative sine. So I look here, negative sine, the derivative is negative cos. And we keep the 5 minus 2x, and then we multiply it by the derivative of the inside. So the derivative of a constant 5 is 0, and the derivative of negative 2x is just negative 2. And last but not least in this section is number 4. The derivative of negative cos, we go back around, is sine. So f prime of x here is sine of x to the 4th minus 2. And then we take the derivative of the inside. So the derivative of x to the 4th is 4x to the 3rd. And the derivative of negative 2 is nothing. So these 4 are the most basic cosine or sine derivatives that you could have. Questions 5 and 6 are a little bit more challenging. So this one, 5 and 6, you have to recognize that it needs to be rewritten. So before you take the derivative, you have to understand that cosine squared is the same thing as saying cosine of 9x, this whole thing, squared. And then you can take the derivative. So when you take the derivative in this situation, you have to actually recognize that this is a chain rule. We're taking the 2, dropping it in front, keeping the base, keeping the cosine of 9x, decreasing the power by 1, right? So 2 minus 1 is 1. And then we're taking the derivative of the inside. So the derivative of cosine of 9x, well, the derivative of cos is negative sine. So we're going to multiply by negative sine of 9x. But we have to take the derivative of the 9x. So the derivative of 9x is just 9. So this is a good example of the chain rule. And then inside your derivative is a trig function. Okay, let's look at number 6. So number 6, same thing. We have to first rewrite this. So we could write this as negative sine of radical 2x plus 3 this whole thing cubed. The negative's on the outside, it's not included with the sign. So when we take our derivative, our f prime of x, we need to do the chain rule. We're going to take the 3, drop it in front, so it becomes negative 3, keep the base, so sine of radical 2x plus 3, and decrease the power by 1. So my power of 3 is being decreased to 2. And then we have to remember to take the derivative of the inside. So now we need to take the derivative of sine of 2x plus 3, or radical 2x plus 3. We know the derivative of sine is cosine, so cosine of radical 2x plus 3 times the derivative of this inside. So we have to know that radical 2x plus 3 is the same thing as saying to the 1/2 power. So the derivative of this inside is actually a chain rule. We take the 1/2, bring it in front, so we're multiplying by 1/2 2x plus 3 to the negative 1/2 power, because I'm taking the 1/2, subtracting 1, and I get negative 1/2, times the derivative of the inside, just this piece, derivative of 2x plus 3 is just 2. So actually what you did here was a chain rule here, and then the derivative of cosine was another chain rule. All right, let's take a look at putting this all together. How could we use the product and quotient rule to find derivatives that involve trig functions? So let's take a look at example number 7. So in example number 7, it's clear that we're multiplying 2x to the 5th times cosine to the 3rd of 8x. So we have that cosine of, cubed here. So before we take the derivative, it would probably be helpful if we rewrote this. So let's rewrite this as 2x to the 5th times cosine of 8x, this whole thing, to the 3rd power. So we're going to call this my high and this my low. So your f prime of x is low first, so low d high plus high d low. So my low function is simply rewriting. We'll actually use colors. Let's use my low function to be the green. We'll put low and then d low, and we'll use blue to be my high function. So d high and then high. So low comes first, or the green. So cosine of 8x, this whole thing to the 3rd, d high, so the derivative of the blue, 2x to the 5th, the derivative of that is just 10x to the 4th. So that's low d high plus my high, rewriting the blue, and now my d low. So the derivative of low is actually going to be another chain rule. So we're going to take the 3, drop it in front, times cosine of 8x, that whole thing squared, times the derivative of the inside. So the derivative of cos is negative sine 8x, and then the derivative of 8x is just 8. So all of that is actually your d low. And this whole thing is your derivative of this product up here. All right. Let's start you off with 8, and then maybe we'll go over this one in class tomorrow. So for number 8, I'm going to give you a hint. You want to rewrite the numerator as x squared plus 3x to the 1/2 power. And the bottom you want to rewrite as sine of 6x plus 1, this whole thing to the 4th power. So that's where I would start. I would make this one my high and this one my low, and use the quotient rule because we're dividing two things together. Use the quotient rule and then finish this up for homework. Just do your best. I know if you're having trouble, that's okay, but just try it, and we will go over number 8 for homework. All right, have a great night, everyone.